The sky over Seoul turned strange that day. It started with a deep rumble that shook windows and set off car alarms. Then came the shadows, massive dark shapes that blocked the sun as they descended through the clouds. "They're here," whispered Jiho, looking up from his desk at the National Museum of Korea. Around him, his coworkers rushed to windows, their mouths open in shock. After weeks of governments around the world preparing everyone for first contact, the alien delegation had arrived, and they had chosen Korea as their landing point. The Taeyang Confederation ships were beautiful in a scary way. They looked like giant metal sea creatures, smooth and shining. 5 smaller ships surrounded one massive vessel as they hovered over the special landing zone that had been prepared in the Han River Park. Jiho wasn't supposed to be at the landing. He was just a museum curator who specialized in ancient Korean military artifacts. But his boss had gotten sick, and now Jiho found himself riding in a government car toward the biggest event in human history. "Remember, you're just there to answer questions about our cultural history if they ask," the driver told him. "The real diplomats will handle everything else." Jiho nodded, his hand shaking slightly as he straightened his tie. The aliens came down from their ships on beams of blue light. They were tall, most around 7 feet, with skin that shimmered slightly, like fish scales in sunlight. They stood very straight, and their movements were precise and controlled. They looked like warriors. The leader stepped forward. "I am Commander Daehyun of the Taeyang Confederation," he said in perfect Korean, his voice deep and rumbling. "We have studied your world for some time and learned your languages." The human delegation, made up of world leaders and top diplomats, welcomed them formally. Jiho stood at the back, watching with wide eyes. Later, at the welcome banquet, Jiho found himself seated near some of the alien visitors. He listened as Commander Daehyun spoke with the human diplomats. "Your planet is quite charming," Daehyun said, in a way that made it sound like he meant the opposite. "We have reviewed your historical records. Quite imaginative." "Imaginative?" asked the Korean president. "Yes." Daehyun's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "Your stories of great warriors and battles. Very entertaining, but clearly exaggerated. A species with your physical limitations could not possibly have accomplished such feats." The room grew quiet. Jiho felt his face getting hot. Daehyun continued, pointing to a display of ancient Korean armor that had been set up for the occasion. "These ceremonial pieces, for instance. Your records claim warriors wearing such equipment could fight for days, shooting arrows with amazing accuracy while riding horses. Physically impossible for beings of your stature." A female alien that Jiho later learned was called Minji looked uncomfortable with her commander's words. "Our historical accounts are quite accurate, actually," said the Minister of Culture, her voice tight. "Of course you would say so," Daehyun replied. "All species wish to appear strong. It is natural to create legends when reality is disappointing." He held up what looked like a small tablet. "We have analyzed your human form. Your muscle density, bone structure, reaction times, all inferior to many species we've encountered. There is no shame in this. Not all can be warriors." Jiho couldn't stay quiet anymore. He stood up. "Excuse me, Commander," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. "I specialize in the artifacts you're dismissing." All eyes turned to him. The Korean president looked alarmed. "Those are not ceremonial pieces. They are functional armor and weapons, tested and proven in countless battles. Our historical accounts may seem fantastic to you, but that doesn't make them false." Daehyun looked at Jiho like he was a child who had said something silly. "Your name, small one?" "Jiho. I'm a curator at the National Museum." "Well, Jiho the curator," Daehyun said, "perhaps you could provide evidence rather than more stories." Jiho looked into the alien's eyes and saw something troubling there. Not just disbelief, but a need to disbelieve. "I would be happy to, Commander. Any time." As the banquet continued, Jiho noticed Minji watching him with curious eyes. He didn't know it yet, but he had just started something that would change both their worlds forever. The day after the banquet, Jiho was called to a meeting at the government building. He thought he might be in trouble for speaking up to Commander Daehyun. Instead, he found himself in a room with top officials and 3 aliens: Daehyun, Minji, and a male alien introduced as Huck. "Mr. Jiho," said the Korean foreign minister, "Commander Daehyun has asked specifically to speak with you." Daehyun stood tall, looking down at Jiho. "Your outburst last night was bold, curator. Most beings would not challenge a Taeyang commander." Jiho swallowed hard but kept his back straight. "I meant no disrespect, Commander, but I cannot let our history be dismissed as fantasy." "Then prove it," said Daehyun. "You offered evidence. I am here to see it." This was Jiho's chance. He had studied Korean military history his whole life. "Would you like to visit our museum? I can show you our artifacts up close." "Artifacts can be faked," Daehyun said, "and even real ones do not prove your people used them as your stories claim." Jiho thought for a moment. "Then what would convince you?" "A demonstration," Daehyun replied. "If humans were truly the warriors your legends claim, then show me these skills." The room grew quiet. Jiho was not a soldier. He knew history and artifacts, not fighting. "I'm not a warrior myself," Jiho admitted, "but I know our techniques. I study them." Minji spoke for the first time. Her voice was softer than Daehyun's but still clear and strong. "Perhaps a cultural exchange program would be valuable, Commander. We could learn about human history, and they could learn about ours." Daehyun seemed to consider this. "Yes, a mutual education. We will show humans how true warriors fight. And you, Jiho, will attempt to prove your legends have truth." One of the government officials stepped forward. "This could be a wonderful opportunity for building relations between our peoples." Jiho nodded slowly. "I accept. But I'll need access to certain historical sites not normally open to the public." "For what purpose?" Daehyun asked, eyes narrowing. "To show you where our ancestors trained. To prove that what I'll show you isn't new, but passed down through generations." After the meeting ended, Jiho found himself walking alone down the hallway. His heart was pounding. What had he gotten himself into? He was just a museum curator, not someone who could represent all of human history. "Excuse me," came a voice behind him. It was Minji, the female alien. "Yes." Joe stopped and turned. "I wanted to apologize for Commander Daehyun's behavior," she said, looking around as if to make sure they were alone. "He is set in his views." "Why are you telling me this?" Joe asked. Minji hesitated. "I am a historian for our fleet. I study cultures we encounter, and something about your Earth records interests me." "What about them?" "They are different from most worlds we find. Most species we meet have simple historical records before modern times, but yours go back thousands of years with details that are—" She paused. "Unusual." Jiho felt a tingle run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "I should not say more," Minji said quickly. "But I would like to learn from you, separate from the official exchange. There are questions I have that Commander Daehyun would not approve of." Before Jiho could answer, Minji handed him a small device. "This will allow you to contact me privately. Please consider my request." She walked away quickly, leaving Jiho staring at the alien technology in his hand. That night, in his small apartment, Joe called his grandmother. She had taught him most of what he knew about the old ways. "Grandmother, I need your help," he said. "Do you remember the stories about the hidden training grounds? The ones you said our family has protected for generations?" "Those are not just stories, Jiho," his grandmother said, her voice serious. "Why do you ask?" "Because I need to take some visitors there. Visitors from very far away." His grandmother was quiet for a long moment. "It is time, then," she finally said. "Come see me tomorrow. There are things you must know before you take anyone to those places." As Jiho hung up the phone, He looked out his window at the alien ships still hovering in the distance. He felt like he was standing at the edge of something much bigger than he had ever imagined. The mountains were quiet except for the sound of the small group walking along the narrow path. Joe led the way, followed by Daehyun, Minji, Guk, and 2 human government officials who insisted on coming along. Gio's grandmother had told him exactly where to go. This place had been kept secret by his family for hundreds of years. "How much farther?" asked Daehyun. He did not sound tired, but his voice had an edge of impatience. "Just around this ridge," Gio replied. He had never been here before, but his grandmother's directions were clear. When they turned the corner, they saw it, a rock face with strange markings carved into it. To most people, it would look like natural cracks and lines. But Gio knew better. "This is it?" Daehyun asked, clearly not impressed. "Not exactly," said Gio. He walked to the rock wall and ran his fingers along certain marks in a pattern his grandmother had taught him. Then he pushed against a section of rock that didn't look any different from the rest. To everyone's surprise, the rock moved. A door-sized section slid to the side, revealing a dark tunnel. "This was built over 1,000 years ago," Gio explained. "A secret training ground for elite warriors." Even Daehyun looked surprised. "Your primitive ancestors could not have built this." "See for yourself," Gio said, taking a flashlight from his backpack and stepping into the tunnel. Inside, the tunnel opened into a large cave. As Gio's light moved around the space, they could see wooden structures, metal rings hanging from the ceiling, and targets carved into the far wall. "This is a training facility," Huck said, his voice full of wonder as he examined everything. "These wooden devices, they are for practicing balance and speed." Gio nodded. Yes, warriors would train here in secret, learning techniques that were not taught to common soldiers. Minji walked to a wall covered with paintings. "These show humans performing fighting moves," she said. "The positions are similar to some Taeyang training forms." Daehyun joined her, studying the paintings with narrowed eyes. "A coincidence," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. Gio moved to the center of the cave. "Our ancestors trained here to master control of their bodies and minds. They learned to move silently, strike precisely, and fight with whatever was available." "Show me," Daehyun challenged. Gio took a deep breath. He wasn't a fighter, but his grandmother had insisted he practice the basic forms since childhood. "As a curator, I only know the beginning movements," he said, "but I'll show you what I can." He began a slow series of movements, the basic form of an ancient Korean martial art. His body flowed from one position to the next, his breathing steady and controlled. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the cave. One of the old wooden beams supporting part of the ceiling had broken. Rocks and dirt began to fall directly over where Cook was standing. Without thinking, Gio leaped across the room. He moved faster than he had ever moved before. He pushed Cook out of the way just as a large rock crashed down where the alien had been standing. The cave grew quiet as the dust settled. Everyone stared at Gio. "How did you move so quickly?" Daehyun asked, his voice different now, respectful, maybe even a little afraid. Gio was as surprised as everyone else. "I don't know. I just reacted." "No," said Minji, stepping forward. "Your movements matched exactly the third panel on that wall, a technique for rapid response in danger." She pointed to one of the painted scenes. Gio looked at the painting. She was right. Somehow, his body had known what to do without his mind telling it. "Perhaps," Daehyun said slowly, "there is more to your legends than I thought." Hyuk, still shaken from his near miss, put a hand on Gio's shoulder. "You saved my life. The Taeyang do not forget such debts." As they carefully made their way out of the now unstable cave, Gio felt something had changed. Daehyun was looking at him differently. And Gio himself felt different too, as if something long sleeping inside him had begun to wake up. That night, in the camp they set up nearby, Minji came to sit beside Jiho while the others slept. "There is something I must tell you," she whispered. "Something about Earth that exists in our oldest records. But we must speak privately, away from the others, especially Diane." Jiho and Minji walked away from the camp, following a small path that led to a clearing with a view of the valley below. The moon was bright enough to see by, and the alien ships in the distance glowed softly against the night sky. "What I'm about to tell you could get me in serious trouble," Minji said, checking once more to make sure they were alone. "Our leaders don't want this information shared." "What information?" Joe asked. "In our oldest records, there are stories about a planet with blue water and one moon. The stories call the people there the dangerous ones." Minji's eyes reflected the moonlight as she looked at Jiho. "I believe they were talking about Earth. Dangerous ones. What does that mean?" "The records don't say exactly. They're very old, and many parts are missing. But they say the beings from the blue planet were unlike any others the Taiyang had met." Jiho tried to make sense of this. "Are you saying your people visited Earth before?" "I think so. But officially, this is our first contact with humans." Minji lowered her voice even more. "These old records were labeled as myths and locked away. Most of my people don't even know they exist." "Why are you telling me this?" Joe asked. "Because of what happened in the cave today. The way you moved to save Huck, it matched our oldest fighting techniques too, not just the paintings on your wall." Minji put her hand on Jiho's arm. "There's a connection here that someone doesn't want us to find." Back on the alien ship, Commander Daehyun was having his own late-night meeting. Admiral Taewoo, his superior, had called him to a private communication room. "Your reports are concerning, Commander," said Admiral Taewoo through the screen. His face was older than Daehyun's, with deep lines around his eyes. "You sound almost impressed by these humans." "The curator showed us things that don't match our understanding of human capabilities," Daehyun replied carefully. "Your mission is to discredit their legends, Commander, not validate them." Admiral Taewoo's voice was hard. The Confederation Council was clear. Humans must not be seen as equals. "May I ask why, Admiral? What threat do they pose?" Admiral Taewoo leaned closer to the screen. "That is not your concern. Your orders are to complete your mission. Find flaws in their historical claims. Make them look weak and primitive, even if evidence suggests otherwise." Daehyun felt something uncomfortable inside him. Doubt about orders for the first time in his long career. "Evidence can be interpreted many ways, Commander." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Don't forget that allowing humans into the galactic community would change the balance of power. Many on the Council fear this." "Fear? What would the mighty Taiyang Confederation have to fear from humans?" "Just follow your orders, Commander." The screen went black. Daehyun sat alone in the dark room. Something wasn't right. In all his years as a Taiyang warrior, he had never been asked to distort the truth. Warriors valued honor above all. Yet here was his superior, telling him to lie. The next morning, as the group prepared to leave the mountain, Jiho noticed Daehyun watching him closely. "You have questions, Commander?" Joe asked. "Many," Daehyun admitted. "Your movements yesterday, they were faster than human physiology should allow." "I can't explain it," Jiho said honestly. "It just happened. In my culture, warrior knowledge is passed down through blood as well as training," Daehyun said. "Perhaps your body remembers what your mind does not." Before Jiho could respond, his phone rang. It was his grandmother. "Jiho, you must come home immediately," she said, her voice urgent. "Strangers came to the house asking questions about our family history. When I wouldn't tell them anything, they threatened to come back." "Are you okay?" Jiho asked, worried. "I'm fine, but you need to see something. I've kept it hidden all my life, as my mother did before me. But now it's time for you to know." When Jiho told the others he needed to return to the city, Daehyun insisted on coming with him. "This cultural exchange is not finished," he said, but his eyes said something different, something Jiho couldn't quite read. As they loaded into the helicopter that would take them back to Seoul, Minji passed close to Jiho and whispered, "Be careful. I think Daehyun received new orders last night." Jiho's grandmother lived in a small house on the outskirts of Seoul. When they arrived, she didn't seem surprised to see aliens with her grandson. "So it has begun," she said simply, looking at Daehyun and Minji. "Come inside, all of you." The house was small but neat. Jiho's grandmother led them to a back room that looked like a storage space. She pulled out an old wooden chest from under a pile of blankets. "This has been in our family for 20 generations," she said, taking a key from around her neck. "Each keeper may only open it when the time is right." She unlocked the chest and lifted the lid. Inside was a metal box that didn't look like it was made on Earth. It had strange symbols carved into it, symbols that made Daehyun gasp. "That's Taiyang script," he said. "Ancient Taiyang script." Jiho's grandmother nodded. "The box was found on our family land hundreds of years ago, along with these." She pulled back a cloth covering, revealing what looked like pieces of metal armor. They were small, as if made for a child, but the design was clearly not human. "Impossible," Daehyun whispered. "There is more," said Jiho's grandmother. "There is a place not far from here. A battlefield where our ancestors fought against strange visitors from the sky. The story has been passed down through my family for many generations." Minji looked at the old woman with wide eyes. "Can you take us there?" 2 hours later, they stood in what looked like an empty field. Government officials had joined them, along with a team of archaeologists that Joe had called. Hyuk was there too, carrying equipment to scan below the ground. "According to our family story, the battle took place here," Jiho's grandmother said. "The visitors' ship fell from the sky, and they fought with our people." The archaeologists began to dig where Hyuk's scanner showed something metal under the ground. After an hour, they hit something solid. Everyone gathered around as they carefully uncovered what was there. It was part of a ship, not large, but clearly not made by humans. And beside it, they found something that made everyone fall silent. Bodies. Human bodies wearing ancient Korean armor, and beside them, alien bodies wearing armor that matched the pieces in Jiho's grandmother's chest. "Carbon dating shows these remains are over 3,000 years old," said the lead archaeologist after running tests. "This is an authentic site, not a fake." Daehyun knelt beside one of the alien bodies. "These were Taiyang warriors," he said quietly. "The armor design is from our early exploration period." "But that's impossible," said one of the government officials. "You said this was first contact with Earth." "That's what I was told," Daehyun replied. "But this," he touched the ancient armor, his hand shaking slightly. "This proves otherwise." As they continued to excavate, they found a hidden chamber beneath the battlefield. Inside was something that changed everything. A room filled with both human and alien technology, far more advanced than should have existed on Earth thousands of years ago. On one wall were paintings showing humans and Taiyang fighting together against a common enemy. Another wall had writing in both ancient Korean and Taiyang script. It says, "The alliance of Earth and Taiyang stands against the darkness." Minji translated, her voice full of wonder. "Alliance?" Daehyun looked stunned. "We were allies, not enemies." As they examined the chamber, Jiho found a small device that looked like the communication tool Minji had given him, but much older. When he picked it up, it lit up with a soft blue glow. "It recognizes you," Hyuk said in amazement. "The technology is responding to your touch specifically." Before they could explore further, Jiho noticed Daehyun receive a message on his own device. The commander's face turned grim as he read it. "What is it?" Jiho asked. "Admiral Taewoo is on his way here," Daehyun said, "with a full security team. They're coming to seize everything we've found," and he hesitated. "Prepare for containment action." "What does that mean?" asked Jiho. Minji stepped forward, her face pale. "It means they're going to destroy the evidence and silence anyone who's seen it." "We need to leave now," Dahian said, his voice urgent. Take only what you can carry quickly. Jiho grabbed the small device that had lit up for him and a few other small artifacts. The archaeologists hurriedly packed their most important findings. What about the rest? One of the government officials asked, looking at the remains of the ancient warriors. There's no time, Minji said. Admiral Tewu's ships are faster than anything on Earth. They'll be here in minutes. They had just reached their vehicles when 3 smaller Taiyang ships appeared in the sky above them. They hovered there, then began to descend. Too late, Dahian muttered. The ships landed nearby, and armed Taiyang warriors rushed out. They formed a line, weapons ready. Admiral Tewu walked out behind them, his tall figure easy to spot. Commander Dahian, Admiral Tewu called out, you have failed in your mission. The mission was based on lies. Admiral, Dahian replied, stepping forward. You knew about our history with Earth. You knew, and you hid it. Admiral Tewu smiled coldly. What I know or don't know is not your concern. Your job was to follow orders. Taiyang warriors follow honor above all, Dahian said, standing tall. There is no honor in lying about our shared history with humans. Arrest Commander Dahian, Admiral Tewu ordered, and seize all artifacts and human witnesses. The warriors moved forward. One of them grabbed Dahian and put restraints on his wrists. This is a violation of our agreement, shouted one of the human officials. Earth is a sovereign planet. Your planet will be contained as it should have been centuries ago, Admiral Tewu said. The council was wrong to allow contact. The risk is too great. As the warriors approached Jiho and the others, Minji suddenly pulled out her weapon and fired at the ground near the warriors' feet. The blast created a cloud of dust and confusion. Run, she shouted, grabbing Dahian's arm and pulling him away. Jiho took his grandmother's hand, and together with Hook, they ran for one of the vehicles. Shots from Taiyang weapons hit the ground around them, but they managed to reach the car. Drive, Minji yelled as they all piled in. Jiho took the wheel and sped away, tires spinning in the dirt. In the mirror, he could see other cars with the archaeologists and officials also escaping in different directions. They'll track us, Dahian said, holding up his wrists still in restraints. All Taiyang officers have trackers built into our uniforms. Minji quickly helped him remove his outer armor and tossed it out the window. Then she did the same with her own. Where should we go? Jiho asked, driving fast down the rural road. His grandmother touched his arm. To the mountains. To the temple. What temple? Hike asked. The one that has been hidden even longer than the artifacts I showed you, she replied. The temple our family has protected for thousands of years. As they drove, Dahian looked at Minji. You helped me escape. Why? Because I've studied the old records for years, she said. There's more to our history with Earth than even this discovery shows. I couldn't let Tewu destroy it all. Kuk, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. There are stories among our scientists too. Stories about a time when the Taiyang weren't the strongest warriors in the galaxy, when we learned from others. From humans? Jiho asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. Kuk nodded. Maybe. The stories are forbidden, but some of us still share them in secret. They drove for hours, heading deep into the mountains. The road eventually ended, and they had to continue on foot. Jiho's grandmother led the way, moving surprisingly well for her age. The temple has remained hidden because it wants to be hidden, she said. It only reveals itself to those who are meant to find it. That's not possible, Dahian said. Buildings don't choose who sees them. Jiho's grandmother just smiled. This one does. As night fell, they reached a sheer cliff face. It looked like a dead end. Now what? Dahian asked. Jiho stepped forward, feeling drawn to a certain spot on the rock wall. He took out the small ancient device they had found. As he held it up, it began to glow brighter. Suddenly, the rock face shimmered and changed, revealing an entrance that hadn't been there before. "The temple welcomes you, Jiho," his grandmother said, "as it has welcomed your ancestors for generations." The entrance led to a long tunnel lit by a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. As they walked deeper inside, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The temple was bigger on the inside than seemed possible. The main hall was huge, with a high ceiling that sparkled like a night sky. Along the walls were scenes carved in stone, showing humans and Taiyang fighting side by side. "This is impossible," Dahyun whispered, walking up to one wall. "These carvings show Taiyang fighting techniques that only our highest warriors know." "And here," said Minji, pointing to another wall, "these are human battle formations that match what we saw in the cave." In the center of the temple stood a platform with something that looked like a control panel. It was covered in symbols that matched those on the device Joe had found. "What is this place?" Fuck asked, his scientific mind clearly trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Gio's grandmother walked slowly around the chamber. "According to our family stories, this is where it all began, where humans and the people from the stars joined together." "Joined together against what?" Joe asked. His grandmother pointed to a dark carving on the far wall. It showed strange shapes that looked neither human nor Taiyang. "Against them. The darkness, our stories call them." Dahyun moved closer to the carving. "The Void Ones," he said, his voice low. "There are old tales among our people too. Tales of enemies so terrible that all races had to join forces to fight them." Jiho stepped up to the platform in the center of the room. Something told him to place the small device he had found at the excavation site onto the control panel. When he did, the entire temple came to life. Lights flashed on. The walls began to glow, and in the center of the room, above the platform, a three-dimensional image appeared, a star map. "It's the Taiyang home system," Dahyun said in shock. "And Earth. They're marked as allied worlds." Then the image changed, showing scenes from the past. Humans and Taiyang training together, fighting together, building ships together. The images were so clear they seemed real. A voice began to speak in an old language. To everyone's surprise, both Jiho and Dahyun could understand it. "This is the record of the Great Alliance," the voice said, "when the people of Earth and the people of Taiyangri stood together against the coming darkness." The images showed a terrible war across many worlds, and in the battles, the humans fought with skills that matched or even exceeded the Taiyang warriors. "Impossible," Dahyun whispered. "Humans are physically weaker than us." "But faster," Minji said, watching the images. "More adaptable, more creative in battle." The voice continued. "When the war ended, a choice was made. The humans of Earth wished to return to a simpler life, away from the stars and their dangers. The Taiyang agreed to watch over the galaxy, while Earth recovered and rebuilt." New images showed Taiyang ships leaving Earth, while humans returned to farming and building simple villages. "But some Taiyang leaders grew jealous of human abilities," the voice said. "They feared that if humans returned to the stars, the Taiyang would no longer be the strongest warriors in the galaxy, so they erased the truth from their records. They taught their people that humans were weak and their legends were false." Dahyun fell to his knees. "Our entire history. A lie. Not a lie," Jio's grandmother said gently. "Just incomplete. On both sides. Most humans forgot the truth too. Only a few families, like ours, kept the memory alive." The final images showed Taiyang warriors bowing to human teachers, learning fighting techniques that had been developed on Earth. "The Taiyang did not defeat the humans," the voice concluded. "The Taiyang were saved by them, and then taught by them. This is the truth that was hidden." As the images faded, they heard a sound from the tunnel, footsteps approaching. "They found us," Huck said, fear in his voice. "Let them come," Gio said, feeling strangely calm. They need to see the truth too. Admiral Taiwu stepped into the temple chamber with 6 armed Taiyang warriors behind him. He stopped when he saw the glowing walls and the platform where Jiho stood. "So this is where you've been hiding," Taiwu said, his voice cold. "Step away from that control panel." "You knew about this place," Daiyan said, facing his former leader. "You knew the truth about humans all along." "What I know is that order must be maintained," Taiwu replied. "The Taiyang Confederation leads the galaxy because others believe we are the strongest. That belief keeps the peace. It keeps the lie," Minji said. Taiwu ignored her and pointed at the control panel. "Destroy it. Destroy everything in this chamber." The warriors raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the temple itself responded. The blue light in the walls pulsed brightly, and hidden panels slid open all around the room. From these openings came floating metal spheres that positioned themselves around Jiho and his friends. "Defense systems," Hyuk whispered in amazement, "still working after thousands of years." Taiwu stepped back, surprised but not intimidated. Ancient toys won't stop modern weapons. He raised his own gun and fired at one of the spheres. The energy blast hit the sphere but didn't damage it. Instead, the sphere absorbed the energy and glowed brighter. "Fire at the humans," Taiwu ordered. As the warriors aimed their weapons, Jiho felt something strange happening. Time seemed to slow down. He could see each warrior's finger moving toward the trigger. Without thinking, he moved, faster than he'd ever moved before. Jiho leaped across the room, flipping over one warrior while grabbing his weapon. He landed and spun, knocking 2 more warriors off their feet. In seconds, he had disarmed 3 of Taiwu's men without hurting any of them. Everyone stared in shock, Jiho most of all. "How did I do that?" he asked, looking at his hands. "The temple," his grandmother said. "It awakens what is inside you. The knowledge passed down through our blood." The remaining warriors looked uncertain now. Daehyun stepped forward. "Brothers," he said to the warriors, "you serve with honor. But we have been lied to. Look around you. See the truth with your own eyes." He pointed to the wall carvings and the holographic images still floating above the platform. "This is our true history. Humans were not our inferiors. They were our teachers." "Silence," Taiwu shouted. "I am your commander. You will obey me." "A commander who hides the truth from his warriors has no honor," Daehyun replied calmly. 2 of the warriors lowered their weapons. Another looked at the walls, studying the carvings with growing wonder. Taiwu, seeing he was losing control, rushed toward the center platform where the ancient device sat. "If I can't have the truth, no one will," he yelled, reaching for the device. Minji tried to stop him, but Taiwu struck her, knocking her down. Before anyone else could move, he grabbed the device and raised it high, ready to smash it against the stone floor. That's when the temple's final defense activated. The floor around the platform began to glow. The device in Taiwu's hand grew hot. He screamed and dropped it, but it didn't fall. Instead, it floated back to the control panel. The temple's voice spoke again, this time in modern language that everyone could understand. "Those who seek to destroy knowledge are not worthy to enter this place." The light beneath Taiwu grew brighter. He tried to run, but an invisible force held him in place. "What is happening?" he cried out, fear breaking through his commanding voice for the first time. "The temple is judging him," Jiho's grandmother said softly. "No. I am Admiral Taiwu of the Taiyang Confederation. I answer to no one." The warriors who had come with him now stepped back, lowering their weapons completely. One by one, they knelt before the ancient power they could feel in the room. Thuk moved to Jiho's side. "Can you stop this? I don't think it means to kill him, but..." Jiho wasn't sure what to do. Then he noticed the device on the control panel was glowing in a pattern, like it was waiting for something. Following his instinct, he placed his hand on it. "Truth, not vengeance," he said clearly. The light surrounding Taiwu faded. The admiral fell to his knees, his face pale and shaken. "The human speaks wisdom," the temple voice said. "Truth must be shared, not forced." That was always the way of the Alliance.